Okay. All right, guys. So we are starting the live stream for Shaken Lighting 2, week 1. I'm not sure if we have anybody in here quite yet. May have a few people rolling in casually over the course of the meeting, but it is Halloween, so I'm sure most people are out getting candy. But yeah, today what we're going to be doing is we're just going to do a little demo on Activity 1.3. It's always kind of a fun one for me to do because we get to play around with a couple sort of stylized vehicles here with different paint jobs and different images we're going to put on here. So let me show you the project we're working on here today. So I'm just going to dip into our class. We're skipping all the way down to 1.3 for this one. And then what I'm going to do is go down here. Most of what we're talking about today is going to be all about making new Pixar surface materials from scratch. So if you've already, obviously gone through 1.1, you sort of understand how to use the RenderMan preset browser. Like bringing in metals and plastics and all sorts of other different types of materials that RenderMan gives you. And it's way more on their site, by the way. So you can go onto their site, check under there, the resources section. There's some other bundles of preset materials you can download, and they're pretty much adding more of those pretty consistently. It's probably doubled or tripled since I started using RenderMan, and presets are really going to be just the way of the future because we kind of want stuff to be automated more and more. Every time we use these softwares, so that library is just going to get better and better every release of RenderMan. But while presets are fun, I do think it's still important to understand how the Pixar surface material works because there are going to be plenty of cases where a preset is not going to give you exactly what you need. You still need to know how to make this material from scratch and then try to manipulate it to get the right type of look. So our goal today is going to be, we're going to go in here, we're going to download the project. We're going to kind of cover some different types of paint jobs we can do. And what I'm looking forward to doing is near the end, we are going to make our own custom paint job. And I'm going to show you guys how to do some textures. So the texturing part of this activity is not required. It's definitely more advanced. Most of the cars that you're going to be producing, we can just simplify to just basic colors. I'm still expecting you to follow along with the videos and be able to like replicate what I'm doing as far as like creating the effect of a paint job with a clear coat over the top. Doing a for a tire, how do you get the right type of sheen and shine on it where you get that little iridescence where like the tire's been cleaned. But the fun part here that we're going to do is we're going to add some textures here to probably the door and I think the hood. And we're going to find some images to put on here. But let's start with some of the basics. So I think what I'm going to do, actually, let me kind of hop here to the end here. The videos will walk you through most of all of this stuff, like metals, plastics, and we're still going to do this today. But what I'm going to do instead is kind of hop to the second part. So when you're turning in this activity, you're actually turning in two different renders. So there's still one Maya file, that kind of has everything in it, but there's two different images. So you're doing one render that's just regular sort of realistic vehicle, nothing too crazy. The themed one is the second image you're doing, which is this part right here. And this is always a really fun one for me to grade because we've seen some pretty creative results. I think even today we had some people posting some images on Discord of like the Undertaker. We've had oddly enough a lot of wrestling themed vehicles showing up. We did Hulkamania last month. At some point, I'm supposed to do a Roddy Piper vehicle. But this time, what you guys are doing is you just basically need to go online, find a really good photo, and I'm pretty open to how you guys want to interpret this. It could be like your favorite art piece. It could be like a team logo, a food product, painting an animal, cartoon character, location. Find some type of reference image, and what you're trying to do is sort of interpret the colors you see from that image into your vehicle. So for example, if we were doing this Diablo 3 one as our target, probably what I would do, since it's dominantly kind of like a black and it's very dry black, and we do have those kind of sharper, wetter reflections in some areas around the eyes, probably what I would do is go with like maybe a matte black paint job, and I would find some ways to accent red in here around it. So I could see maybe doing like red flares, like fender flares. Maybe we try doing like red metallic rims. We could even go beyond the requirements and like play around with like adding red lights on the front of the car that are casting this kind of creepy red lighting out. Change the lighting back here behind the vehicle. Uh, the Mountain Dew one's pretty easy, just mostly a green paint job, using that red on the dew part as an accent, probably finding white on the trim. I can see doing like white window trim right here. So it's also going to be kind of good too because this will give you a chance to play around with color matching. You're going to basically train yourself to look at the color options inside of Maya, like HSV. You're going to look at the image, and you're going to do your best to see if you can get the right hue, saturation, and value. So, like if you're doing Captain America right here, can you get the same tone of blue? Are you able to get that same red? Is it too warm, too cool? Does it need more saturation? Is the white the correct tone of white? So you'll kind of figure all that out. So let's jump in here and do it. We're going to hop right to the themed one. In the process of doing the themed one, we're going to end up creating some pretty good stuff anyway. So I've got my project currently on the desktop. You guys probably are putting your projects in the documents folder. I do have one in the documents folder. I just am putting it on the desktop temporarily just for the sake of the lecture. But make sure you do keep all your stuff organized. We've got my 2019 open. So what we want to do is set the project and then open the Maya file that goes with it. If you guys have questions, by the way, I know we have a couple people watching. Feel free to shout it out in the chat. You can just let me know what's going on. If you have any questions as I'm going through the paint jobs and all that fun stuff, or just let me know who's here. Say hi. So we're going to do set project. Go to the desktop. Here's our folder for that vehicle material project. Right, we just click on it, hit set, and then we're going to go to scenes. And we only have one file in here, so we're just going to click on that, hit open, don't save, and open that up. All right, here's what the project starts with. So for those of you that are currently in Shading and Lighting 2, if you've already gone through the first class, then you're pretty familiar with this vehicle. We've used it before in the previous class. Hey, Alex, good to have you in here. We're going to go here to vehicle side, and I'm just going to hit the R just to kick off this render. So if we never changed anything, this is where we're currently starting. So you'll notice that everything in here is sort of this kind of just a white color. The ground is also, actually they're probably all using the same shader. I bet these are all just basic Lamberts. And we have a little kind of an orange kicker light back here. One important thing though is the windows. You'll notice that the windows are transparent. They're tinted, so they're very dark. Now the reason I have them tinted and already set up for you is because for this week, the whole theme sort of that we're talking about is based around reflections, mainly diffuse and specular reflections. And so that would be light that bounces off the surface of something that's opaque. We haven't really spent a lot of time talking about transmissions yet, and that's light that passes through something. That's basically what glass is. And since we haven't really discussed how that works, the physics of it, we don't have enough time to get into how to build it on top of everything else. So I'm just providing you guys with a glass material for the windows. You don't have to worry about recreating any of this stuff. It's already set up. I mean, if you really want to go into the preset browser and find another glass, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm not going to stop you. But I think it's going to be easier for everybody just to kind of let that part be. All right, let's turn this off. So since we're doing our themed one, I'll show you our target today. We'll get some textures on here later, but here's what we're doing. So I would like to do something kind of interesting, and we've had someone do Mario before. We're going to do Luigi, and probably stick with just, let's find a better one here. The one I looked up right now is the famous Luigi death stare. We're going to find a regular image of Luigi by himself, though. You'll see why. We're going to use that stare later. That's going to be my image, I think, on the hood. Wow. Was not expecting to see that in the images of Luigi. Luigi getting jacked, hitting the gym. My God. Um, wow, we're getting a lot of stuff we shouldn't be seeing. Okay, so here's our Luigi. So for the most part, we've got uh, green, blue, a couple of yellow buttons here, a couple of white accents with the gloves. So we have to kind of find a way to interpret this in here. Um, just looking at what we've got, I would say, let's see here. We could try splitting this down the middle. I haven't really done this before with this vehicle, but this is kind of an interesting one because it really is split almost 50-50 green blue. So I feel like maybe if I could find a way to break up the color across, like on this crease, maybe we can keep the crease up green. And I'm going to try getting the selection below this crease right here to go to blue. I don't know if it's going to look good. We're going to try it out here. Again, we're doing our best to interpret this. So this is going to be kind of fun too, because by breaking up that body panel into two different shaders is going to give us an opportunity to talk about UV maps, selecting and applying textures based on different chunks of faces rather than assigning a shader to just one object at a time. Because we're basically going to be breaking that object up into two pieces to do this. All right, so let's just get the basic paint job done first, then we'll hop into some of the other guys. So what I'm going to do, let's go to perspective for a second, and let's get all of this at least selected. Now, some of these shaders are going to change over the course of the next 45 minutes. This backside doesn't really even matter. You can't see this anyway from the camera, but we'll just select it. I'm going to stick with all that. If I look in the outliner, I try to organize most of this so it's easy for you guys to figure out what probably should be using, which material. We do have the vent here, so maybe I'll group all of this. Some of that might be the interior. What is this? Inner door panel? Yeah, that can all probably be painted too. That's probably not a big deal. I'm just going to grab all the geometry in the body geo. This all seems like something that would have just a regular paint job. So we're going to go to the Render Man tab. Actually, Yoshi could be a cool one because I know you're ahead of schedule, Alex. So if you want, you've already done a couple. You can totally go in there and try doing a Yoshi. Yoshi's kind of fun too because thinking back to some of the stuff from like the Mario World version of Yoshi, there's so many different colors and variations you can do. You could do like the green Yoshi, our fire Yoshi, yellow, the Stomper one, the blue. Might be kind of an interesting one. Or even better yet, if you actually had that car group duplicated and you had it so they were kind of like all facing the camera from different angles, you could sort of get the all the different Yoshis together, like the sort of the four different car colors all facing towards us. That could be kind of fun. No pressure, but I could see that working out pretty well. So we're going to go in here to the RenderMan tab, and right here we got our Pixar surface. So we're not using the preset browser quite as much today. Let's just bring all this in. One thing I don't really care about this preset browser is that the size of this thing is constantly way too big, and I always have to rescale it. But we're going to use some metals in here, but that's probably about it. So just collapse that down for a second. We have all this selected. We're going to right click on that little shader ball up here and pick a Pixar surface. Let's just apply that. Now, one of the tricky things when you're doing materials that I think a lot of people struggle with is just trying to figure out if the materials even applied to something. Like, how do we know if it worked? Now, at the bottom in the script editor, this little help line, you'll see that we got a notification that says result Pixar surface. Now, this wasn't here before, so this is telling you that something was completed, like we did some action, and it did create a Pixar surface for a shading group. A shading group, which is what that SG stands for, is this little extra node in the node graph that just tells the shader to connect to the geometry. But basically, by seeing that, we know that everything works. But how do we also verify a better way? What you want to do is immediately go into the attribute editor. And what I want you to see is when you click on different random things in your project. It could be a light, it could be a camera, an object. It doesn't really matter. But when you start clicking on things, you'll see all this stuff updates in the attribute editor. Like if we click on the ground over here, you'll see we have something that has to do with the ground geometry. This looks like translation information, translate, rotate, scale. So it's very similar to the channel box, right? That's all this stuff. We have a shape. This is the shape of the geometry. This has a bunch of like mesh controls. And I know you guys have seen some of this before because you've been digging around the attribute editor. We have some stuff for RenderMan. We could do a bunch of overrides on emission color sets. Some of this has to do with like tessellation for setting like displacement and subdivisions. Way more advanced. That's going to be stuff we cover down the road. But what I want you to look for is another tab up here, and it's probably going to say something like Lambert. So Lambert is a shader. And if we go into the hypershade at the top, so that's going to be this little teal ball right here. I want you to see all the materials currently in the scene. Okay, so let's just scale that down a little bit. We've got Pixar Surface 4, window material. We know what that is because he talked about it. Lambert 1, particle cloud, and a shader glow. These, don't worry about. These are effects nodes that just come with Maya. That Lambert right there is a Maya material that by default is on every single object in the scene. So every time you guys have been making like a cube, the Nefertiti head from the first class, like all the objects you've seen so far in Maya, like even this, they're all currently using Lambert. Now the reason why this is here is because we need a shader to be on everything or we would not be able to see the geometry. This is sort of that, it's what's giving the geometry that gray color. The Pixar Surface 4 though, this is the one we made earlier over here. This is new, this was not here before. But to verify that it's on something, if you click on an object that you think has the right material, you're going to see there's a Lambert 5. You can just ignore this, but look to the right. Pixar Surface 4. You should be seeing that Pixar material that you created. Like if you put a preset on something, you should be seeing the preset from the preset browser. Now currently this is not very helpful because it's just called Pixar Surface 4. So that means every time I make a new shader, for like the rims, the tires, if I did some plastic pieces back here, they're just going to start creating new Pixar surface materials and they're going to start numbering themselves in sequence. So Pixar Surface 4, then there's going to be 5, 6, 7, and eventually, if you're not really careful about that, you're going to end up having, potentially a dozen or more different Pixar surface materials in here, all named almost the exact same thing, and you're not really going to know which one is which. So I want you guys to really be careful about that. And as soon as you know you have a shader assigned to something, like it looks like Pixar Surface 4, it's on all these pieces because I had them all selected when I did this. I'm going to now name it. We're good to go. So Pixar Surface 4, let's call this car paint underscore material. Enter. So now, even if I gave this scene to another artist, he can go in here, and even though he may not know how we built it, he can very quickly read the names, and he knows car paint material probably means it's on the car paint because it's named that way. Now, if you also want to verify that this is on certain objects, here's a better way to do it. If you, in the hypershade, which is that button right there again, in the hypershade, find a material, hold your right mouse button down on it, and then gesture over to select objects with material. When you do this, it's going to select any object that's currently using that material that you're right-clicking on top of. And so it's another really good way just to verify that, yep, that is on all the pieces I expected it to be. So if I do that over the Lambert, you can see it's lighting up all the other stuff because these are materials I haven't got to yet. It's still using the default Lambert. The window, when I select the window, it lights up the window. So hopefully that all makes sense, but we're all set. We're going to hop in there, and I'm going to go back to the vehicle side cam. We're going to initiate our IPR render. So let's just turn that on. It's already looking amazing. We haven't done anything at all. We get a darker gray, and all we got to do is change that color to our paint, and then we're going to start adding in some different types of specular reflections. So since we're doing Luigi, let's pull it up again. Actually, what I'm going to do, I know you can't really see this very well. me just leave that there. It's going to keep getting covered up. All right, bear with me 1 second here. I actually need to bring this in so I can put that on the side. All right. Let's see if we can do this right. Oh my goodness. There we go. Put that right there. Let's see what we can do. We're going to click, and let's try to get the color right. Oh, let's start at the render too. That would probably help. Okay, I've got it running. Here's my green. Here's our diffuse color. This is the color of the paint. We're going to click. I'm going to start right around here. Let's boost up the saturation. Okay, we're just going to kind of critique our way through this. Definitely going to make it richer, brighter. Probably actually around there might be. We're not that far off, honestly. This might be a little too blue. I feel like this is almost a little more of like a yellow kind of tone to it. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing that same thing. And it could just be this artist rendition of Luigi's green's a bit different, but I feel like it does have a little more yellow. So I want to push this hue towards yellow a bit more. So let's try doing 125. That does look pretty good right there. I kind of like that. Yeah, we're going to go with that, I think. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I feel like that's a good match. I could see maybe boosting the saturation just a little more than we currently are, but I'm liking that. Good. All right, so we got our green color already matched pretty well. Now we want to start adding reflections. And the key thing here, and I go over this in the video, is when you're doing reflections with car paint, it's actually made up of two different things. There's the paint itself that reflects one way, and then on top of the paint, we have a clear coat. So what we're trying to do right now is just get these specular reflections for the paint, and then eventually on top of that, we're going to begin to add in this really nice clear coat detail. So a good starting point for most of our dielectric materials, and so dielectric would mean anything that's not conductive, like not a metal. We want to have the face color up a little bit, and then we're going to boost the edge color up quite a bit more than that. We're trying to create something called a Fresnel reflection. And I'm going to show you guys what this looks like here. It's a lot of math, and we are not going to bore you guys with any of that stuff right now. But basically, what Fresnel reflections are, this is actually this is kind of a funny graphic to display this. A Fresnel reflection is depending on your angle that you're looking at the surface. Like if you're looking more directly down, the reflection is going to appear one intensity, and as you kind of get more of a glancing angle, like looking farther down, the reflection is going to sort of appear to be stronger, like more noticeable or vibrant. So there's a variation of intensity that changes based on the angle the geometry is in relation to us. That's very important. Now, the good thing is, even if we don't really know what that means, or if we don't want to get into the math because it looks scary, it doesn't really matter. There's a couple of good values we can throw in here, just like almost on autopilot. So I'm going to boost the face color up just a little bit, and you're going to see why I barely moved this, because see how I've almost nudged that like maybe 5% up the slider, and look how bright that highlight is. If you crank this thing up, look how intense that reflection gets. You do not want to have the highlight completely cover the vehicle like this, because we're already drifting away from a realistic paint job. It is way too reflective. There's a big difference between most materials and a mirror. And we're drifting towards a mirror territory. This should not look like that. So we're going to put this back a lot. Now what we want to do is increase the edge color. This means on the silhouette, this is our extreme angle. We do want to have a brighter value than this one. This is how we get the Fresnel reflection. We're going to boost this up farther. See that line on the silhouette right there? It looks really good in the hood, on the roof. Can boost it up a little bit more. Kind of push that a bit. So I'm going to leave mine right around the halfway point, I think. Now from here, once you get those set up, and don't put any color in here, by the way, because if you put color in a face color, like that green, you're going to make your reflection tint to a green color, and you are now creating a metallic material. What we want to do instead is leave these as gray or shades of gray and take the roughness up to dry the highlight out just a little bit. And you'll see why in just a second. So we're trying to soften the reflection of the paint because as soon as we add the clear coat, this is where we're going to get that tighter, sharper reflection. This is really what makes the car paint look nice. So we're going to leave this the way it is. Right around 0.35 seems okay. But we might change that roughness once we see how it looks with the clear coat. I'm going to do the same values here in this section down here. Boost it up a little bit. See that second highlight pop up on top of the other one? Boost this up as well, about halfway. Okay, there we got another one. This we're going to do maybe around 0.15. And I'm going to do a crop just to get a clean render in a couple areas because I really want to see that highlight. So we're going to go up here. We're going to do crop. It's going to draw over this one section and let this refine and update a little faster so I don't have to wait for it to draw the entire image. Now, once it's doing this, I could go back here and start playing around with like the roughness settings. So I could decide, if I go higher, it's going to sort of soften that more. Is it too bright? Do I need to like push these back a little bit? When they combine together, was even that too much? It could be. All right, we're just going to boost it up just a little bit. Okay, let's actually bring this back. See what 0.2 looks like. I might go a little lower than that. 0.15. There we go. That probably seems okay. So we have like a tighter highlight from the clear coat, and then behind it, there's this broader, softer highlight. That's this guy right here. But they're combining together. They're all layering on top of the green, and we're getting this really nice little layered effect for the car paint. And you can push this pretty far too. There's a bunch of other things we haven't done because they have like pearlescent paint jobs. There's a like an iridescent chameleon paint jobs. Those are the ones that where the reflection will shift color based on your angle. So this green wouldn't just be green. It'd have like a range of values. And there are metallic paint jobs. That's a whole other thing. We're not going to worry about that though. All right, feeling pretty good about that. Now let's try to get the blue with this thing working here. So actually, let's do. I think I'm going to get the rims knocked out of the way first. I might leave these white and kind of say that these fender flares are the gloves, but I think I'm going to knock out the rubber here and the rims and all this other stuff first. So we're going to hit the crop. I'm just going to click anywhere just to, that'll sort of clear out that crop window. Then we'll turn that off so I don't draw another crop again by mistake. All right, let's just kill the render for a second. And for the tire, this is one of those things where we really probably don't want to get too crazy with it because a tire is just a tire. I don't know if I want to start coloring that with too much information. I want to keep most of the paint job to be where all this stuff's happening. We're going to leave the tire like a regular tire. So we're going to click. I'm going to make, actually let's do, whoops, let me undo that. I'm going to do all the tires. So that, this guy, we're going to come to the back. Just holding shift and just clicking on the ones in the back as well. And we're going to do a new Pixar surface. So I'm going to just verify I do have one here. Yep, so I have one in here. That's now on the tires. So we can click. Let's go over here, rename it. Call this tire material. Let's just knock out the rim here at the same time. Why not? Let's see, for the rim, I might keep this simple, I think, in this case, and just stick with like a nice chrome. Actually, it might be fun to do because you have the gold buttons. I'm kind of curious if I did gold in here. That might look pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to do the gold buttons, I think, on these little lug nuts and these guys right here. And maybe I'll see if I can get away with just having this to be chrome. So I'm going to have that rim selected, this rim, pick that guy back here. Oh, I'm going to pick that as well. I'm going to leave the clip. Actually, I'll grab the clip. Let's do that as well. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. This guy. And that. Okay. This I can use something from the preset browser. Let's open that up. So we're just going to use Chrome. So we're going to right click here, import and assign selected to those pieces. Let's just hit the tab, minimize the preset browser again. And now what we're going to do is get all this. So this is going to be the white. But I think I do want to get the gold, so I can probably knock that up pretty quick. We're going to click here. I'm not even changing the materials. I'm really just assigning some materials to a couple pieces right off the bat, just to kind of see what it looks like. So even though it's yellow, I'm kind of curious if I can start with gold and just maybe change the color. So let's try doing gold preset for that one, because I do want it to look kind of metal. This is going to be interesting. This is the one I think I'm going to use for a white. And I don't know if I'm going to put that on other pieces yet, which is okay because I can always go back and like assign materials to other sections later. But I'm pretty sure I do want it here. So we're going to click on that. This is going to need to be a new Pixar surface material. I'm probably going to build that plastic trim myself. So Pixar surface, and we'll call this white plastic material. Okay. So all I'm doing is just kind of laying out the groundwork and foundation of where things are assigned. So let me just double check a couple things. I'm going to right click on car paint, select, that's my car paint. That's the chrome, gold, tire, white plastic. Okay, some pieces we haven't got to yet. They're going to need something in a second, but this should be fine for now. What I'm looking for though is now when I go in here, I can at least turn on the render. And I have enough of those materials assigned where I can start clicking through and just like modifying things really quickly to get a rough idea of kind of where we're going with the whole thing. I do like the gold bolts right here. Those are looking good. I actually do like the chrome rim. So let's just try getting that tire out of the way. So I'm going to click on the tire. We already assigned this new Pixar surface material to it. So we called it tire material. So that's quite nice. Now this is really powdery gray, so tires are a lot darker. We're going to bring that back. And I go into way more detail, by the way, in the video playlist. I'm just kind of rushing through it a little bit for the live session. We're going to bring that back a lot here. So it's very dry currently. Now remember that even if you have something very dark that's not obviously shiny, it still is going to have specular reflection. So we still want to make sure this has a little bit of a highlight. So let's do the same thing we did over here. We're going to boost it up. Boost this up a little bit as well. You're going to see a highlight appears. So we got a little bit of a shine right there. And for this, what I'm going to do is get the drier highlight on the rubber. And then if we want to make it look wet, I'm going to try doing that with iridescence because we're going to give it that effect where it's been polished with like an oil on top. So it's very similar to the car paint, but instead of doing a clear coat, I'm using iridescence. And iridescence and the clear coat are similar, but the kind of the advantage of using iridescence is this has a gradient between two colors, and so you get that kind of color shift that looks like this. Oh, apparently my internet's not going to work right now. That's fine. But if you look it up on yours, my browser's being a little bit weird at the moment. Basically, you can kind of get that little shift of when you mix oil and water, you kind of get those little rainbow variations. That's what the whole thing is going to do, which that does happen on tires. So I kind of want to see if we can do that. All right, let's get a drier highlight on the rubber because that should not be very sharp. There we go. That looks pretty good, nice and dry. All right, we're going to close out a clear coat for this one. Let's go down to the iridescence. And this one's kind of weird because like these are color boxes and this is still face and edge just like this, but it's displayed as a number, but it's still kind of the same thing. So still boost it up just a little bit like you're doing here. Boost this up as well. Watch the color because see how strong that is. It's working. We just need to tone it back because like that is a really saturated color. So you have a couple ways you could do it. You could go in here and just desaturate it, which we might do. Could go in here to start pulling saturation back. It's on the red and the blue. Okay, and now we get kind of that hint of it. So it's like a little bit of a wet highlight, but it's not pushing those like saturated values like it used to. And I think that actually is working pretty well. I'm tempted to darken this even a little more than it is. Let me see if I do 0.01. I think we're going to go with that. That should work pretty well. Might just bring this roughness up just a little bit on that iridescence though. Okay, there we go. Cool. The tires are still fairly simple. Like there's not any tread detail. There's not any logo. Like they're really very smooth. Like they don't have any information modeled into it. So if we did have like a properly modeled tire with like all the treads and the tire manufacturer kind of etched into the wheel, the side of the wall, that would for sure help. But at this distance, it's still going to work pretty well. Okay, I want to get those golds on this. Let me actually fix that white first right here. So here's the white plastic. We're going to close out of that. So this one, I'm going to try to get the glove effect. We're going to bring this up. That's already pretty good. Might do that. And same thing as the plastic, but we are going to add a highlight. I'm going to keep this a little bit drier than the rest of the paint. So I'm probably going to bring this up like the other one, but this is going to have a higher roughness because plastics aren't typically as sharp as like our metals. So we'll just boost that up. That actually does seem like it's a pretty good match already. I could go a little bit brighter. My worry would be if I push this up to true white, which this isn't. Watch how flat that becomes. See how it starts to become almost so bright when it mixes with the lighting that it feels out of place. Like you kind of lose all that shape. It's basically blown out. So we're going to pull that back just a little bit because I don't want to really go too extreme here. So you always want to think about how does this color and the material property react with the light. It's not just the material by itself, but what is it doing when it hits the lighting. So a lot of this is subject to change based on all these other factors going on inside of the scene. But I'm kind of liking that so far. All right, let's see. I want to get a couple other things selected here. So let me just turn this off for a moment. To go to perspective, I need to assign stuff to the right shaders now because I have a bunch of pieces that are currently not using it. This, I think I'm going to go with the white trim here. Because I could do that, do the mustache on one of these, do like a brown. Might do that in the front. So let's do the white trim here. I'm going to do this. Now I want to assign a material we've already built to this piece. So we're going to right click on white plastic. So I have this selected, right clicking over the white plastic material in the hypershade, assign material to selection. All right, what else we got here? I got the door. Okay, that little handle. Let's give that car paint material. This would be, I might do that as the gold, I think. Gold for that. I don't think this says anything yet. I might do this, I might do that brown like I do the front. Okay, this, I think we could do chrome. I don't think you can see that anyway, but I can see this. All right, that's going to be chrome. Let's see that. Yeah, I actually think I will have that chrome as well. We're going to keep this kind of simple. I may not do the mustache. I'm not sure yet. Or if I do it, maybe I'll do it here because that almost feels like it could be the mustache of the vehicle. I don't know. I don't know why we're even having a discussion about where the mustache of the vehicle is, to be honest. All right, so gold's appearing. Oh, that little guy. Let's click on that. That I'm going to have gold as well. I forgot about that little emblem back there. There we go. That's looking good. And this, those I may just give the paint job. I didn't split up so there should be a mirror in here because obviously they're side mirrors. I didn't actually break that up where that middle part is a mirror. So it's going to look like it's painted. I guess we could put a mirror on that if we wanted to though. Let's do that real quick. I'll show you guys how to do that. So if I want to do like a pure mirror, I think if assuming this is still UV'd, I could probably fix that. How does this look like? Oh, this is a mess. What's the other one doing? All right, we're not doing that right now. That's going to take too much work, I think. Well, I guess we could try UV mapping it. Didn't really plan on doing this, but that's okay. So I want to assign a mirror material to part of this. My concern is that the way this is UV'd currently, it's just a disaster, and so it's really hard to select all this stuff. We can try it out though. So this is definitely more advanced. I'm going to click on this and I'm going into the UV editor and you're looking for this little toolkit. And I'm going to go to create, where is it, camera based. And all it's going to do is do a quick little snapshot based on our camera angle here. It's taken that giant mess we had before and it's bringing it back down to the two different pieces. So what I'm hoping is if I can, now that I've cleaned it up, if I can just find an edge in here where the mirror would stop, I think we can get this to work. Oh my goodness, there's like a seam in there somewhere and I can't quite see it. What is going on here? We're going to cheat this. I think if I just get it close enough, we'll never know the difference. All right, let me zoom in here. What's this look like on the bottom? I think if I go right click on edge, and if I just double click, I think I just may have ran an edge loop. I think that worked actually. Okay. I'm basically doing a modeling selection trick. You guys haven't learned this yet. So if you right click over the surface and see, you'll see these little components pop up. Yeah, so Alex, you mentioned about selecting faces. That's actually what I'm doing. But because selecting this chunk here is a little tricky because it's very dense, and I want to be very careful I don't overlap into other sections. What I'm doing is I'm trimming the edge by double clicking on an edge loop. Over here, I'm going to shift right click and choose cut. And then what that did, so I'll kind of show this to you, is if I right click in here and go to UV shell, it should, yeah, see how it split that apart from the other pieces. Oh, apparently there was another section in here. Wait a second. Let me undo this again. There is two pieces. Oh, this was already two pieces to begin with. That was a waste of time. Well, we spent a lot of time doing that for nothing. So I didn't realize that these are already broken up. So if I had literally just gone in here and clicked on that piece and moved it, yeah, those are mirrors. I thought they were still attached for some reason, but yeah, they're already broken up apparently, so that's actually kind of nice. Those are the mirrors. These are the paint. Okay, we can fix this. Let's go back to object. What have we got on here currently? Let me undo Control Shift D. Let's delete the history. Car paint. All right, we're gonna go into the preset browser. And I'm going to start with Chrome. I can turn this into a mirror pretty quick, but we'll use Chrome as a starting point. So I'm going to hold Shift, or not hold Shift, I'm going to right click over those. And then I'm going to right click on Chrome and do import and assign to selected. So I assigned that Chrome material to those parts of the mirror. Let's go back to object. And I'm going to do a render. It should look like it's Chrome right there. Let me deselect that. Yep, I think that worked. That does look a little more Chrome-like. Yeah, I got to change a couple settings on it, but I'm pretty sure that did work. Good. All right, let's kill that again. Okay, let's close out of this for a second. We might be back in there later. All right, I'm liking that. What are we missing? This is car paint. That needs to be car paint. We got the wipers. Those I might put the same tire material on there. I know it's not made of the same rubber, but it's probably close enough where I can get away with that black. I might even make this that same rubber as well, depending on what that looks like. Okay, I think we're almost good here. Let's go back to side, turn on the render again. Okay, I'm going to click on this. Actually, I can see that little chrome there. If we go over, there's the chrome. The only difference really between chrome and a mirror is it's primarily due to the roughness and how all this stuff right here works. Their chrome, actually the preset, is set up as a physical spectral reflection. We're not even really talking about this in any of the videos. This is a little more complicated. But basically this uses real physics and like index of refraction values to calculate the spectral reflection. We're not doing that. We're going to go back to artistic, and I'm just going to crank these up to white, crank that back. We're going to go here, draw a little crop over there, and then probably bring the roughness down to almost 0 because I don't want the mirror. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Because a mirror shouldn't be rough. It should have a very crisp reflection. And so this roughness value would be 0 or extremely low and close to that. But that actually looks pretty good right now. Okay, I'm liking that. Let's do the blue crease with the blue paint. And then I want to get that with something too. Maybe I'll have that be the brown. I'm going to duplicate a shader, I think, real quick. And have that be the brown back there. So let's try that out. So if you ever want to like duplicate something, I don't really talk about this very much in the videos, but sometimes you'll have a shader that's really close and you want to make a copy of it to use it and just modify it a little bit. So maybe what I want to do is take the white plastic. I'm going to make a copy of it to make a brown plastic for a couple other pieces. So if you click on a shader you like, oh, actually there are a bunch in here. Let me clear this graph out real quick. I'm hitting clear graph right here because apparently every shader I've made has been slowly dropping in here. I'm going to click on white plastic. We're going to go to Edit, Duplicate, Shading Network. So this is going to make a copy of that shader. Then we're going to do Control, double click. So Control, double click on a shader is a rename shortcut. It's the same thing as when I've been renaming it in the attribute editor. I'm going to call this brown plastic material. Okay, so it's hanging out. Let's assign it. Click. I think I'm going to do this with the brown plastic. Might even do this, honestly. And I think after that, we can kind of wrap this up. Then all I got to do is that blue paint, brown plastic. Let's assign that. It's going to look like it's white because I just duplicated the shader, and I haven't actually changed the color to brown. But if I go to it and now change the color to brown, brown's going to be over here. There it is. You can see it's updating now and everything. So he's probably a little more of a red, so I'm going to go just a bit closer this way. And let's darken that back a little bit more. There we go. That's a pretty sweet looking Luigi stash. We're so close. Let's do that blue, and we're in the home stretch. All right, let's turn that off. This is going to be it's going to require me to do a kind of an interesting selection trick. So I'm going to look at the UVs and see what we're working with here. Oh, there are no UVs. That's fine. Okay. What I'm going to do here is try to get selections below the crease, and I want to see how difficult this is going to be. Looking at the way it's modeled, that is not going to be fun. Where does that loop go? Yeah, that is going to be very unpleasant to do. Almost tempted not to do that, just based on the amount of work it's going to take to clean that up. Sorry, give me 1 second. Just looking through this thing. All right. Well, we might be doing something a little crazy here. Yeah, sometimes when you're dealing with things like this, to get the color to break up properly, you have to kind of look at the geometry and figure out the quickest way to select something. And the geometry through here is pretty crazy because the edges crisscross everywhere. And so guiding the color through here the right way is going to be a little bit difficult. But we can try it out. I'm going to do this by clicking on here. We're going to go into the UV editor. I think, is this it? No, that's the hypershade. Let's go back into the UV editor. This could take a second, so bear with me, guys. We're going to do camera based on that whole mesh. This is just creating UVs because I need this to hopefully get a better selection of everything. Okay, we're going to run in here, and I'm going to start running loops because currently if I hold right mouse button and go to shell, see how the whole thing's still lighting up? What I'm trying to do is break this up into pieces so I can quickly select that bottom half without me going in there with like my cursor, hand clicking on a bunch of components. I'm trying to avoid that. So we're going to go here, right in the crease. I'm going to double click on that. Okay, where'd that go? That looks terrible. That loop is going down and around. I'm watching this loop zigzag all over the place. Okay. We're going to do something different. We're going to go from here. I'm going to do a shift click all the way to there. So that's connecting a loop. Shift right click cut. I think I've got that to the edge. Yep. Okay, right here it gets a little weird. So we're going to help guide this cut through the right area right here. Cutting is, think of it kind of like using scissors, and you're cutting up this piece of paper into different sections. All right, right here it probably doesn't matter, so I'm just going to try to guide this part through. We're going to do that. It's a little weird right here. That's probably not any easy way to do this part. Cut. That's really weird, that one section. Actually, let me undo that. I might have this run above it instead. Yeah, we're just going to do it. That's all right. It'll all work out. So I'm just going to click through these edges, shift right click cut. I just want to see if this broke it into two pieces. It did not. Yeah, this thing probably runs inside somewhere as well. Let's undo it. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. We're doing a really crappy selection. Let's undo it. I'm just hitting Control Z to go back. All right. Didn't want to do it this way, but here we go. We're going to cheat this thing. What I'm going to do is basically just marquee select through this thing to get the faces. It's not going to be pretty though. All right, let's click. Right here I have a lasso. I can just use my regular marquee to draw over it. It's relatively straight, so I think if I right click and do face, I can try to select over that section. And I'm going to use Control to deselect over there. If I can get that level. Okay, let's do that. This is looking really weird. I may just even leave that, and we're only going to show the people one side of the car. We're going to pretend this looks good. All right, let's go in here. I need to make a duplicate of the car paint. So let's do, I should have done that before I did this. Oops. Let's do, where's our paint? Car paint, edit, duplicate, shading network, control double click. We're going to call this, I need to rename these. This is actually now going to be blue car paint. This is green. And as long as they don't see the other side of the vehicle, we're good. Let's just select through that. This is going to get blue. Oh boy. We don't have a shading group. Let me back up again. Got a little bit of a problem here with the shading group. I think the blue paint is missing a shading group. Shading group, yeah, it's missing a shading group. Shading group happens when you assign something to a material, occasionally this little guy doesn't appear and it kind of turns green. Let me see if I can trick it to working real quick. There's that. It's missing the Lambert. Yeah, this is going to be a mess. We're going to have to build the blue paint from scratch. I'm about to put that blue on there and I think call it a day and not mess around with it too much more, I think. So we're going to do that. And the trunk, this is going to be our blue. That's all we're doing. So we're going to do a new Pixar surface. There are ways to do this, but it's going to take me a lot longer than our live session. So we're going to keep this a little bit easier. Ideally, what I would do, if I would have more time, I'd UV this whole thing and make sure this edge right here was a lot cleaner. That way I could select that, which would allow me to very quickly select both parts of the paint much quicker than trying to like hand draw the line through there. But we're going to have both those. I got to do material on here. We're going to zip through the car paint. So blue paint material. Let's just turn on the render, and we're going to get all these set up super quick. So I think we had 0.35, I believe, on that. The clear coat was about the same here. I think we had 0.15 on the clear coat. And that would be, yeah, there it is. It's white, so we're going to make that blue. Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm tempted to even like change that to blue as well, or maybe use the this guy and have that be blue. So let me try putting blue on the door. That way I can see it a little bit easier. All right, we're going to saturate that and darken it. There we go. This is a super tacky looking vehicle. Yep, that is beautiful. Some bad decisions were made today. So we could stop here. I really don't care for the randomly blue door here, and I kind of wish I could spend more time to get this little thing cleaned up to show you guys how to split it, but that's all right. What I'm going to do is say we could leave it here. I think I just want to show you how to put Luigi on here as a texture, because that's what a lot of people are going to want to do anyway. And that's kind of what I was hoping to get to a lot earlier before I kind of got sidetracked looking at the UVs for this thing. So what I want to do with the blue paint is replace this blue color with our Luigi stare. So we're going to use, I think we're going to use this one. He looks a little bit more deranged here than the previous one. So, oh, I can't even get to it. My internet's screwing up. It's going to look pretty pixelated, but I hope we can get this to work. Oh, my poor internet. Oh, it's going to look kind of crappy. Oh, that stinks. That's all right. We're going to do it. So let's save image. Now, if we are going to use an image, what you want to do is go into your vehicle's source images folder and just, we'll call this Luigi stare. So it's in the source images folder of our project. It's pretty pixelated, so I don't even know if it's even saving properly, actually. Let me just double check that. Actually, that might be good enough to work. So the key with this is we need to get UVs for the door. So it's actually going to be pretty easy, because if you're doing it from the camera angle, you can just select the door and in the UV editor do camera based. And we're probably already at a good point where we can get this to work. I'm just going to center these UVs in 0 to 1 space. What I want to do is go to the material. We're going to hit the little checker box here. We're going to click a file. We're going to load in a file. So if you look at the material now, see how that blue slider's changed? It's no longer a color. It's sourcing its color from something else. So now we're going to go here, hit the folder, and that's odd. What is a GIF file? What is that? Is that even a thing? I've never heard of that. Hold on a second. This is a weird format. Let me open this in Photoshop. Where? Ooh. Can I even open this in Photoshop? I have never seen a JFIF. I'm on Adobe. All right. Apparently we're not going into Photoshop. All right, let me do Task Manager here. We're going to have to kill this thing. I am clearly running into some issues at the moment with the laptop. All right, Adobe Photoshop CC, you are gone. Let's open this with something else aside from that. We're going to do Photos, and I hope I can just save this again in a different format because it's not looking. I don't know what that JFIFF thing is. I don't want that. What is this? I've never even seen that before. Hold on. Is there a better one aside from that? Perfect. Oh, not link. Save image. That's a JPEG. Weird. That's fine. All right, we'll do this guy. JPEG. Would you stare? Save over that. All right, let's see if this one looks right. Let's delete it. Save that one more time. All right. It's JFIF again. It must be something with the little Google preview because my internet's not working, where it's not loading the full JPEG. Jeez. All right. This one I think did work. I'm not sure why that one works and the others don't. That's fine. Images. Let me see. Yep, I think this is all related to my internet. Well, that's kind of crappy. Let me try turning my wireless on. See if that helps in just a second. Sorry, guys. If this doesn't work, that could explain why I'm running into problems. Oh, let's cancel that. Oh, I think the stream is dying. Oh boy. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but it probably isn't going through.